Mr. Ambassador Baum, thank you very much for inviting me to India to get the possibility to show some aspects of the Zurich transport system. Please apologize, my English is not perfect, but I hope you understand it. Otherwise, just ask or somebody can help to translate. I will start with a small comparison. Well, it's not really comparable, Switzerland and India. If you look at the size, 150 times bigger, 150 times more inhabitants, 80 times bigger the area. Interesting concerning mobility and urban and public transport is the density. India is denser populated than Switzerland, but the urban areas like Zurich, of course, is much denser. This is the region of Zurich. Cars per 1,000 inhabitants. You see quite a difference. I found this data on Wikipedia. I don't know if it's correct, but roughly it will be more or less that. So India 18 and the city of Delhi 130 cars per 1,000 inhabitants. The other way around in Switzerland, the whole country is about 400 or 500, but the city with good urban transport has less. I think it's the lowest number in Switzerland, 340. That means less car means less pollution and less problems of traffic. Short look at city of Zurich, just to understand what the problems are. The city is, especially the center, is old, hundreds of years old houses, narrow streets. There's no space for motorways. There's no space for a lot of parkings. So more or less the only solution is an improved public transport, a good public transport, so people use public transport and not their private car. 25 years ago, or exactly in 1990, a new system started in the region of Zurich, in the area of Zurich, with commuter trains, tramways, and buses, putting all together to improve public transport. What we see here is the data of the last 25 years, starting into the green line is the cars coming into the city every day in 1990 in percent, and to compare the commuters, they enter by train every day to the city. You see what happened from 1990, the number of cars remained absolutely stable, even if the population grew by more than 20%, and all the growth was taken over by public transport. That was, I think, was the only possibility to manage that problem. I tried to calculate it for the peak hour. If we had to transport all these people by car and not by public transport, we had to build an additional motorway with 16 lanes. So you can imagine in this very small city, no space at all would be absolutely impossible. So public transport, public mass transport is the only possibility to grow for this city. Looking at the modal split, or the change of modal split, I got data from 94 until 2010. So the percentage of private car went down slowly, but significantly. And the public transport, that's the whole, that's not only the city. In the city it's much higher, it's 60 to 70%, but the whole area went from 20 to more than 30% and still growing. So that's quite a success. Interestingly, and I think it's probably one of the few or the only region worldwide, the more income people have, the more they use public transport in Zurich. Normally it's the other way around. Public transport is something for, well, people that can't afford a car or something. But here, the higher the income, the higher the use of public transport. Looking at the number of cars per 1,000 inhabitants, I showed that already, the actual data. That was starting after Second World War with 0 cars. So it steadily grew until 1990, up to 400 cars per 1,000 inhabitants, and at least we could stabilize that number. There's a slight tendency going down to 360 or 340, in the last 20 years, but it's only slight. But if we can go this way and continue this way, that would be a good solution. So we try to find out what is the possible explanation for this high usage of public transport. I think it's two main factors. The network has to be attractive, and the access to the network has to be easy. What we always do, we consider the way from the home to your destination, and not from the initial bus stop to the last train stop or something. The way always starts at home and not at the bus stop. So that means also pedestrian ways to railway station, pedestrian ways to bus stops have to be good, and it's not a good solution by crossing a huge street or something. The bus stop has to be very well accessible. Also, the interchange stations have to be very well designed, that the ways are very short. You can win much more time of your whole trip by very good connections. It's much easier than by faster trains, for example. The journey time has to be competitive to private car. Even a comfortable public transport does not really help if it takes too much time. High frequency until midnight from 6 o'clock in the morning, a dense network, so every 400 meters there must be a bus stop. The ticket system is 100% integrated. I show that afterwards. A very advantage of Switzerland is we have normally large political majorities for concerns of public transport. It's easier to develop public transport projects than building new roads, for example. So that helps a lot. And also in our region we have, fortunately, a public transport authority with many control options. So we have the money to expand, the money to build new infrastructure, and financing the operation, because operation of public transport still needs subsidies in Switzerland, less and less, but it still needs. Easy access. So there is nationwide more or less integrated ticket system. That's by law. So it has to be possible that from every stop in Switzerland to every other stop, wherever in the country, you only need one ticket. We are not there yet, but we're close to that. And it is written by law that that should be possible. So you don't have to buy for every bus or for every train a new ticket. So there should be one ticket from your origin to destination. We have that on the regional level. There's a 100% integrated ticket system for every mode of public transport. So you see the commuter train, the double-deckers, the tramway or light rail, the river boats, the cable cars, the leisure boats on the lake, the national intercity trains, or the buses. It's all integrated with one ticket. There's a 100% open system, so you don't need a reservation, no supplement, no access gates, no time restrictions. It's all open, and that helps for the people to have easy access of the system. Going to the Swiss level, I think one very important thing is the easy memorizable timetable. So you don't have to look at your timetable, you have to know it by your heart, you have to know it at least for the main hubs. There is since 1982 a regular interval timetable, so on every line of the whole country, every hour, in every direction, there's a train, or at least one. And then later on, and we are still working on that since almost 40 years, and it takes some more years, we call that fixed hub timings. So these little red and green dots, these are clocks, and the trains stop, they arrive at these stations. All the big cities in Switzerland, they arrive at the station before the full hour, before the half hour, and they leave a couple of minutes later. So at every hub you have connections from every train to every other train. And that also works on smaller points. But we're still not at the end, but working on that. So we have connection hubs every half hour, sometimes at minute 15 and 45 as well. Some lines, we need to accelerate them to reach the short journey time. It's not as fast as possible, it's as fast as necessary. So it does not help to be even faster, so just 25 minutes or 55 minutes or a bit less than an hour. Then you have 5 minutes time to connect. Also, we had to speed up the transport hubs. I showed that afterwards with the Zurich projects. Zurich main station is one of the biggest or second biggest station in Europe. Even if the city with 400,000 inhabitants is quite small, so we have more passengers than inhabitants in the city, in the main city, Zurich main station. You see here the timetable described in a clock. You see the trains arrive before the full hour and leave after the full hour. Dozens of trains, and they all connect to each other. The same at minute 30. And at the minute 15 or 45, every hour, the station is empty. So I took this picture at, I don't know, at minute 15 or 45. The station is completely empty. And this is a station with, at the moment, 108 departures per hour. But that's, we do all for the connections. As you can imagine, it was quite difficult, and the station is completely saturated. So we had to build a new cross-city link, as the ambassador mentioned. The main goals of the new city link: more capacity on access routes. The main access routes, they have 4 to 6 tracks already. More capacity at the main station, and more speed for the through running trains, just to reach the next hubs within 55 minutes or so. The Western Access Bridge is the longest bridge in Switzerland. Ironically, it's within a city over other tracks. It's more than 1 kilometer long. There's a new underground station, 4-track underground station with very long tracks. Capacity up to 24 trains per hour and directions. The whole project was within the budget and took 15 years of planning and realizing. What are the actual challenges? The railway network of Switzerland, and especially of the Zurich area, is completely saturated. The average of all tracks in Switzerland, at the average there are a bit less than 160 trains per track and day. So this is world record, quite ahead of Japan, which is normally leader in railway technology. And if you compare the United States with only 11 trains, so not much happening there. I didn't find the number of India. The network is so saturated that we can't move anymore. Now, not one additional train can be added. So the outlook to coming to an end, a bit pessimistic. So the network is completely saturated. It's hard to do more, or you have to build. Traffic grows still faster than the network can grow, and the complexity of regulations becomes more and more difficult. What the optimistic part is, we still have high political and public acceptance for new railway projects. Further big projects are already in the planning phase, but they take another 15 to 20 years to realize. And fortunately, the financing is still comfortable for public transport projects in Zurich area and in Switzerland. I think that was more or less 15 minutes. Thank you very much for your attention, and now the questions.